So my Tesla Model 3 has around 6,200 miles on it now, and during that time Tesla recommends to rotate the tires. So my car is the rear-wheel drive long-range model, and you're supposed to rotate the front tire to the back and then the back tire to the front on the same side, and then after doing so, swap the rear tires. And so to accomplish this, you either need 2 jacks or you need 1 jack and a set of jack stands. So I decided to just purchase another jack since I'm going to be using it at some point in the future, either to do maintenance on this car or my other car. And so the first step is really to just remove the lug nut covers. If you have the 18-inch wheels without the aero covers on them. I know if you have the Performance Model 3 or the 19-inch wheels, I think there's just one large cap that you need to remove. So I'm just going to use the tool that Tesla gives you to remove these plastic lug nut covers. And so it makes it fairly easy to pull these off. It's pretty difficult if you're just trying to use a screwdriver. So after you have those off, you're going to have to grab a breaker bar with a 21mm socket. So I actually just picked up a breaker bar from Harbor Freight. It's the 1/2-inch model, and like I said, you need a 21mm socket, and these are on fairly tight. Tesla recommends that they're torqued to 129 foot-pounds, but with a breaker bar, it's fairly easy to get them off. And so I'm just going to loosen these enough so that I can remove them after I jack up the car. So it would be difficult to try to remove them when the car's jacked up and you have a potential for the car to pull off of the jacks. And so I'm going to go ahead and loosen the rear as well, the same way that I just did the front tire. So after you've loosened the front and rear lug nuts, it's time to go ahead and jack up the car. And so there's a jack point both in the front and the rear. And it's recommended to use a jack pad adapter. And so I ended up 3D printing this. I think there was a design on Thingiverse. And so I just used 100% infill with PLA, and it's really strong. So I think it should be sufficient, but you can also pick these up fairly cheap now on eBay. I think originally they were fairly expensive, but there's a lot of additional sellers now, and so it may just be easier to just purchase some unless you have a 3D printer and want to give it a go. So I'm going to go ahead and jack up the front of the car first. And so go ahead and see if I can place this adapter underneath first. So yeah, it looks like this one slides out. I know some of the ones you can purchase have actually a rubber O-ring that kind of keeps it in place. I'll just set it on the jack first and then make sure it's going into the correct location underneath. Alright, so the adapter is in the hole underneath the car, and so I'm just going to kind of slowly lift it up until the front tire is off the ground. Looks like the adapter's holding up. This is my first time using it, so I want to make sure that it's strong enough. Alright. So yeah, the front tire is off the ground enough to where I can remove it and swap it with the rear. So, like I said, you can just use a single jack to lift up the entire car, but since I have another jack, I'm going to just do the same with the rear. just to make sure it's even, and there's probably less stress on the battery on the car as well if you use 2 jacks. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. All right, now both the front and rear tires are off the ground, so I'm gonna go ahead and swap them. I'm just gonna thread these on by hand first to make sure I don't strip them. And then I'm just gonna use my impact to tighten them up. And then once it's on the ground, I'm gonna torque them to 129 foot-pounds. And so whenever you're tightening the lug that bolts up, you wanna go in a star pattern. Make sure that the wheel is on evenly. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing on the other side, and then I'm gonna go ahead and jack up the rear of the car, and then, like I said, swap the rear tires. The car jacked up, and so I'm gonna go ahead and swap the rear tires. So yeah, it would be a lot easier if you have the 4-point lift, but just gotta use what you have, and it's actually doesn't take very long. So a trip to the dealer it's probably gonna take an additional amount of time, and also it sounds like they actually charge you as well. So for the price of one tire rotation, I could just buy another jack from Harbor Freight. And so that's what I ended up doing. So now that I have the car back down on the ground, I'm going to go ahead and torque all of the lug nuts to 129 foot-pounds. And I did double check in the owner's manual. That's actually what Tesla recommends. It sounds high, but I guess since they're lug nuts and not lug bolts like my Audi, I guess the torque spec is higher. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. And if you want to go in a star pattern, make sure that the wheel goes on evenly. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same for the other 3 wheels. I have to go ahead and put these plastic caps back on, which is kind of a pain, but they come on and off fairly easily, so go ahead and finish it up. Alright, so that was it. Hopefully it was fairly straightforward. I mean, it is just a tire rotation, but being a Tesla, you have to take a few more precautions to not damage the battery, and so make sure you are using a jack pad adapter. If you have any other questions, let me know. I plan to make additional videos that I think might be interesting as I own the car. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.